partially not the same. Got it? Okay, we'll start. So, the topic we're going to be discussing today, which is long overdue, but just worked out. Thank you. That it's going to be today, so it's today. Is that it's known that in Chabad, many people write to the Rebbe. They take the paper, they write down a question, and they put it into Igros Kodesh, which is the many volumes of the Rebbe's letters, where he answered people questions that they had on various issues, and they take a look where it opened up to see if there's something there that relates to them and that answers their questions. And like many things that Chabad do, they have all sorts of people that raise questions, object, there's something wrong with it. And of course, I even had the privilege to hear that to open up a book and look for an answer that's literally voodoo and that's prohibited according to Torah and so on. But the truth is that not only regarding this subject, but regarding everything that Chabad does, everything has a source in Torah. And if you do a little bit of research and you're sincere, you'll find the source and you'll see that it's nothing new. And it's based on a strong foundation within Torah itself. And this is another example. Yeah?
I actually have a source. I found it somewhere.
Where did you find it? Well, this is definitely one source, and you'll tell me.
I'm saying, how can people see that it's not coming from the Torah where it is?
That's a question I find a little bit difficult to research, I think, because people say things without researching, unfortunately, not only this, regarding a lot of things that Chassidim do or Chabad does, people don't really take the time to look into it, to judge favorably, to see if there is a source, or even to just listen to someone who is involved to hear what they have to say. And yes, those who do, like the speaker you had this morning, who came from such a place where he had a different opinion, but he was open, and as a result of that, he changed his opinion. So this is the source. Actually, guess where? In the Shulchan Aruch, the laws of voodoo, out of all places. This sheet that I gave out is a copy of the Shulchan Aruch. I'm not talking about the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is a concise, but the actual Shulchan Aruch itself. And it's the volume is called Yoredeya, and it's chapter 179, Kufayin Tes. And in Hebrew, it's called Hilchas Me'onein U'Mechashev, which means laws that pertain to sorcery, what you're not allowed to do because it's sorcery. So the two sheets that I gave you are both the same thing, except on the bottom, I want to point to one of the commentators on the bottom. That commentary on the bottom is just written in such small words that some of you might have difficulty. So on the other side of the page, you have the same thing, just a little bit larger. It's all Hebrew. So I'm going to read it to you word for word, what it says. It's talking about things that you're not allowed to do because it's a sort of a sorcery. And he gives examples of what you're not allowed to do. So this commentary, which is printed in every Shulchan Aruch, Birkei Yosef, he says like this: however, it is permissible, these are the words, it is permissible to open a book of Torah and to look at the pasuk that comes up, because the Torah is our life. And we find this in the story of Yeshayahu, who was a king. I'll soon explain that story, that he actually did something based on the fact that he found the Sefer Torah, and the Sefer Torah opened up to a specific pasuk, And based on that, he acted. Then he brings another source in the Yalkut of Mishlei, where it says like this: if you want to consult the Torah, imagine, consult the Torah. It doesn't say follow Torah. What does consult the Torah mean? It says you could consult the Torah. And it says the same with David, that I speak on your Torah. What does it mean to consult the Torah other than following the laws in the Torah? So he says, it means what we just spoke about. Consult the Torah means to take advice from the Torah. And that is to look at the pasuk that comes up when you open the Torah, and that's the Torah telling you what's the advice to do. Then it brings another source. And it said like this: I received this from my Rebbes, from my Torah teachers, that when they wanted to do something and they were in doubt if to do it or not to do it, they would take a Chumash or one of the books of the prophets, they would open it up and look at the top of the page, and whatever pasuk came out over there, they saw that as an indication of what they should do. And this they considered that we're consulting with the Torah to know what they should do. In other words, when you follow the laws of Torah, that's not consulting. The Torah tells you, halacha, you must do A, B, C. You're not allowed to do A, B, C. This is obviously areas where there's no clear halacha. It's a personal issue that I need to know which direction to take. So when I open a book of Torah and I see what it says, that's consulting with the Torah. And even though there's a source that says don't do things which are like just drawing lots to figure out what direction to take, it says because the Torah says you should just accept what Hashem does, but it doesn't apply to this because this is consulting with the Torah. So that's number one. Now, what story is he talking about? So let me give you another sheet. I won't be giving you more than that. Don't worry. You'll be able to walk out. It won't be so heavy. This is the other sheet. This is something which you can read later in more details. But this is the story in Tanakh, which is exactly what it's talking about over here. As we know, in the era of the kings, there were certain kings that were great tzaddikim, and unfortunately, there were certain kings that were wicked kings, and certain kings that actually worshipped idols, and they pushed others to worship idols. And naturally, that was a devastating time for the Jewish people. So this is talking about a king whose name was Yoshiyahu, and he came after the king before him was one of those that they worshipped idols, and they did a lot of destructive things against Torah. Now, in the Beis HaMikdash, the holiest place in the Beis HaMikdash was the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And everyone knows that in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, what was there? The Aron and the Luchos, the Ark and the Luchos, which contained the 10 Commandments in it. However, there are a few other things. One of the things that was there was a Torah scroll. Moshe Rabbeinu, the last day of his life, wrote 13 Torah scrolls. How that's possible is because it was Moshe Rabbeinu. But he wrote 13 Torah scrolls. Each one of them was given to each tribe. That was 12. And the 13th was put into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. The difference of opinion exactly where it was, but it was, everyone agrees it was in the Holy of Holies. After they got rid of the kings that were idol worshippers, and a king like Yoshiyahu, who was a tzaddik, came into power, they cleaned up the Beis HaMikdash from idols and all sorts of terrible things that were there. But they were shocked to find that the Torah scroll that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote, nobody knew where it was. And then one day, as they were doing the renovations, they came with the exciting news. They found the Torah scroll that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. On one hand, this was good news. So I'm looking at page 325. I'm not going to read word for word. I'm assuming that the people in this room know how to read English. So I'm just going to go over what it says here. So it says here they found the Torah scroll, but when they opened it, it was in Parshas Kisavo. And that Parsha talks about what will happen if the Jews don't follow Torah. They'll be taken into exile, and it says the king himself will be exiled, and other things, all negative things about the future, about the Golus. So they decided they must tell the king what happened. they found the Torah, but look what they found with it. So on page 326, it says how he came to the king and he told him the good news, and then he told him the not good news that it said in the Torah those words. And his reaction was immediately, this is a sign from heaven that Hashem is going to, obviously, even though I brought the people to tshuva, not enough, and therefore he and all the people are going to be taken away into exile. And he began to cry, he tore his garments. And then he told them to go to one of the prophets. There were a few prophets in that time, but they went to Huldah. She was a woman prophetess. To go to her and to ask her whether this is really a message from Shemayim and what they should do about it. And she came back and said, yes, this is a message from heaven, that this is what's going to happen. But she told him that being that he conducted himself in the proper way, and that he himself personally did tshuva, it's not going to happen in his generation, but it'll happen in a later generation. But once he heard that it's going to happen in a later generation, he's the one that said, if that's the case, let's hide the Aron and the Luchas and the Torah scroll and everything that's in that place should be hidden under the ground. So I'm sure you've heard that there are things that are hidden under the ground. That's when that happened by this king, when he heard the news. And that's what it means when this commentator says that based on the Torah scroll, they took it very seriously and they did tshuva and they took out something like this, the Torah, 10 Commandments and the Aluchas and the other things that were in that room. They put it all under the ground. Based on what? Because they opened the Torah scroll and they found this message. So this is one of the sources that when you take a Torah book and you open it up, that's going to be a sign from heaven that this is something which Hashem is really telling you. The interesting thing is that people who think that this is something which was invented by Chabad. So first of all, I'm showing you the source. By the way, is that the same source you had?
No, mine was the girl down.
Oh, the Hagara, right, that's what it's called. So what prompted me to do this was because years ago, I used to give classes in places outside of Chabad, and they would bring these things up. So I did the research, and this is what we found. Another thing which is interesting, I'm not anybody who wants any of the material that I'm telling you about, I can make copies and give it to you later. But right now, I'm just going to talk about it. I don't want to load you with a million papers. One of the greatest leaders of world Jewry when it comes to halacha was Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, who lived in Manhattan, in the Lower East Side. And the Art School gave out a book. This is a book about his life. So in his book, they write about how the city of Lakewood came about. In Lakewood, New Jersey, there's a huge Jewish community. And there was someone by the name of Rabbi Aaron Kotler, who he's the one who established that community many years ago in the 1940s. What brought him from Europe to establish? This is the story that they write, that his father-in-law, who was a great Torah scholar, lived in Israel. And Rabbi Moshe Feinstein lived in America. And he couldn't make up his mind, should he go to Israel or to America? So he opened up a book of Torah, and he read these words, and Hashem said to Aaron, his name was Aaron, go to Moshe in the Midbar, in the wasteland. So he said, okay, America's a wasteland. Those days, Yiddishkeit was the wasteland. Go to Moshe, that's Rav Moshe Feinstein. And who's Hashem talking to? Aaron, that's his name. So clearly, the whole community in Lakewood today, which has, can I heard about 5 or more thousand families living there, it's all based on opening a book, which people say is voodoo, chas v'shalom. Clearly, this is something which is accepted in Torah and accepted by all communities. In fact, that's what it's called. It's called the Gorel of the Gra. The Gra was the leader of world Jewry amongst the Lithuanian Jews in the times of the Alter Rebbe. In fact, he was the strongest force who was in opposition to the Alter Rebbe, to the Baal Shem Tov. His name was Rabbi Elio of Vilna. And he would make decisions based on this, opening the Torah book and making a decision. So the Gorel is actually called his Gorel. Another incredible story is there's someone who's another book that was given out about the life of someone called Aryeh Levine. In Israel, he's very famous. He was a great person. And there was a big tragedy that happened in Israel. There are a lot of details to the story, but it's called the convoy of the group of 35 soldiers. This was at the time when Israel was still fighting for their independence. Maybe it was after the war. No, I think it was the last days of the war. And there were a group of 35 soldiers that were bringing food or ammunition to fighters that were in a place called Gush Etzion. And the story that I heard was that there was an Arab that came across them, and they wanted to kill him, but then he begged for mercy, and they decided to let him go. They let him go, and that's what happens when you have mercy for someone who is the opposite of mercy. He went and called hundreds of other Arabs, and they attacked these 35 soldiers, and they killed them. They were all killed. And not only did they kill them, but they did things that to their bodies after they were killed already. And as a result of that, there were 12 of those soldiers that they couldn't even bury because they didn't know who's who. So this person did something which was his way of identifying who's who. And he did it this way by opening up a book of Torah. And I mean, if you can look this up online, the story is a very well-known story. Just to give you an example, he opened up the book of Torah. He opened up to Yoshua, and it said something, the words he saw was from the tribe of Binyamin. And one of the people, his name was Binyamin. So they said, this person Binyamin. Every single name that was there, 12 people, every pasuk he opened to was the name of one of those people. Every single one. They have the details there. One person's name, it said in the Torah, Benyamini, and his name was Oded Benyamini. One person's name was Yaakov, and it was a Yaakov. One was Yosef. One was Gaon, his last name was 8 times Gaon, and so on and so forth. So based on that, they decided that this is a sign from heaven that this person, why am I bringing this in? Just to be clear that this is not something connected to Chabad. This is accepted by the whole world, and everybody follows this, and everybody agrees that it's not something Chas v'Shalom which is outside of the frame of Torah. On the contrary, as you saw here, it's advisable that if you don't know what to do, open a book of Torah and follow what it says. We as Chassidic Chabad, even though we know there are many paths, but we always want to know, does the Rebbe himself agree with such a method? Is this something that people do, but it's not really Chabad? And the Rebbe doesn't really agree with it. So again, we got to look at the sources. So first of all, there's a number of places where the Rebbe speaks about this and says this is what people used to do. But one particular source I want to mention is in a Sikha of Tashem Emtes. This is an edited Sikha, so it's not something that there could be any kind of mistake. The Rebbe edited every single line, and everything that's there is accurate. And the Rebbe says this is called the Goro. You know, in the Beis Hamikdash, they did certain things by Goro, which means they drew lots. And the Rebbe says that drawing of lots, especially in the few stories in the Torah that we find, they drew lots. That's how they made a decision. This is something which comes from Shemayim, to the extent that the Rebbe brings a source from one of the Gaonim, that he says, a person who doesn't believe in the Goro, it's as if he's denying the Aseret Adibros, the 10 Commandments, because it's basic to our belief in Torah and to Hashem. And what he's talking about is the stories in the Chumash with the Goro. But from there, the Rebbe goes and says, as it's known, that there's an old, ancient Jewish custom that if people don't know what to do regarding an issue that's not written clearly in the Torah, if it's something which is in the Torah, we'll talk about this later, it's clear, black and white, I'm allowed to, not allowed to, you look in the Shulchan Aruch. But if it's something personal, Should I go study in this yeshiva? Should I study in that yeshiva? Should I take this job? Should I take the other job? Should I move into this house or the other house? So you open a Torah book. These are the Rebbe's words, a Chumash or another Sefer, and you look where it's open, and you understand that this is Bashgacha Pratis. It's a sign from heaven that Hashem wants you to do A, B, or C, whatever it is that it opens up to. That's what the Rebbe writes. And of course, it's based on the fact that it's Hashgacha Pratis. So one of the questions that I got is, okay, if it's Hashgacha Pratis, I'll open up any book, and wherever it opens up, I'll look for some sign of what I need to do. Obviously, in these sources, they all say the word is open a book of Torah, whether it's a Chumash, whether it's one of the books of the prophets, but it has to be a book of Torah. And the reason for that is very simple. Of course, everything's Hashgacha Pratis. If a leaf falls off the tree, it's Hashgacha Pratis. If there's a wind blowing, it's Hashgacha Pratis. If the wind is blowing at 10 miles an hour, not 9 miles an hour, it's also Hashgacha Pratis. But these are things that we have no clue. There's no way in the world we can relate to it, understand it. It's beyond us. Only Hashem himself knows. But things that are Hashgacha Pratis in Torah, Torah was given to us, that we should learn from it. So if it's something which is Hashgacha Pratis in Torah, that means it's meant for us to study it, to analyze it, to research it, and to follow what it says. So therefore, if it's in a Torah book, then we go by it. If it's in any other place, we can't say it's Hashgacha Pratis because we don't understand the Hashgacha Pratis of things. And everything is Hashgacha Pratis, but we can't make a decision on that because the Hashgacha Pratis there is sort of hidden. In the Torah, it's revealed and it's open. And that's why it all talks about a Torah book. So where does this custom come from that we write a note and we put it into a mimer or a sicha of the Rebbe? Is that, okay, so the general idea of opening up a book and saying that if it opens to a certain page, it's clearly from Shemayim, from heaven, guiding me. Clearly, you see the sources, not even a question. And anyone who has questions or doubts is definitely not aware of these sources. But when you talk about the Rebbe, you put a book in a piece of paper in the Rebbe's book, where's that from? So first of all, it's also an old ancient custom of Hasidim. But some of you might remember that when it was Yud Shvat time, we read a letter. This is a letter that the Rebbe sent. This is even before the Rebbe officially accepted leadership. And the letter was about how we should conduct ourselves on the first Yahrzeit, the first day, first anniversary of the passing of the previous Rebbe. And one of the things the Rebbe said that on that day, every chassid should write a pan, should write a note for themselves and for their family members when they're asking the previous Rebbe for bracha. And then what should you do? These are the Rebbe's words. After davening in the morning, everyone should write a pan and read it. Those who had the merit to go into Yechidus, which means to have a private audience with the Rebbe, they should picture the Rebbe's face and they should picture themselves as they're standing in front of the Rebbe and they're reading it to the Rebbe. And they should take this paper, put it in one of the pages of the Rebbe's Maimer or the Rebbe's Sicha, something that the Rebbe, a Torah that the Rebbe taught, and then later to send it to the Ohel. And when the Rebbe himself spoke about this by different Farbrengens, he said this many, many times, he said it's based on the words of our sages that tzaddikim are similar and they reflect the way they conduct themselves in this world is a reflection of the way Hashem does things. In reference to Hashem, it says that Hashem gave us the Torah and he invested himself in the Torah. In fact, these are the first words of the Keteris HaDibros. Some of you might have learned a sikh about this in the Parshas Yisro, where it says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am God, your God. So the Gemara says the word Anochi is an acronym for 4 words. Ano, Nafshi, Ksavis, Yehovis, which means I've written myself up in the Torah. I invested myself in the writing of the Torah. The same is with the tzaddik, that every tzaddik invests himself in his Torah writing. So therefore, when I take this piece of paper and I put it into a book, which is the Rebbe's writings, whether it's a mimer or a sicha or a letter, by doing that, it's as if I'm giving it to the Rebbe. That's what the Rebbe says. And the way to do it is to, picture the Rebbe's face as if you're standing in front of the Rebbe and giving it to him, the way you would do that in the times that you actually went into the Rebbe's room. That's another question that people bring up, picturing the Rebbe's face. What's that all about? Where does that come from? Does that have a source? And the answer is yes, like everything else. Picturing the Rebbe's face is something which generates Yiras Shamayim. Where's the source? One of many is a story in a book called Chumash. A story with Yosef HaTzadik. That Yosef HaTzadik was in Egypt. First, he was in prison. Actually, the story was before he went to the jail. And there's a story there with the wife of Potiphar that she tried to bring him to sin. And then it says that Yosef saw the image of his father's face, and that stopped him from committing a sin. And then later he was put into jail. But it doesn't say that he remembered what his father taught him, or that he remembered something that he studied in Torah and that stopped him. It says specifically the image of his father's face, which naturally was etched in his mind and his memory, because he always remembered his father's face. At that moment, the image of his father's face, that stopped him from doing the sin, which means that something about the image of a tzaddik's face has in it the power to generate extraordinary fear of God. And therefore, even though other things wouldn't have stopped him, this stopped him from doing the Aveira. And that's why we see that picturing the face of a tzaddik brings a stronger connection between us and the tzaddik. And not only it's a stronger connection, it has an impact on us. In that case, it was fear of God. And in this case, it's fear of God and also deepened the connection between me and the Rebbe. So that's also part of it. And the other thing is where people raise the question, okay, I can understand if you're standing in front of the Rebbe and this is the way it was, but now after Gimel Tammuz, you don't really see the Rebbe physically, you're imagining, you're picturing all these things. Where does that go? So this is something which needs another class in itself to go into the more detail, but this is one thing that I want to mention in reference to this. And that is also not something new that someone invented today, but again, there are many sources for this. And when we give that class, we'll go into those sources. But as far as Chabad Chassid is concerned, we know that the Rebbe's Maimer Basiligani is very special because it's the first Maimer that the Rebbe said. And the same thing with every Rebbe. Besides everything that they taught, is that first Maimer that he said, this was the opening Maimer with which his leadership began. So the Frierdiker Rebbe, his first Maimer that he said had a different opening. It was about Amalek. But in the Maimer, there was a story. It's interesting that very rarely do you find a story in a Maimer. A Maimer is usually deep Chassidus. In a Sicha, there are stories. In a Maimer, there are usually stories. The Rebbe's first Maimer, there was actually a number of stories. A story with the Alter Rebbe, with the Mittel Rebbe, with the Tzemach Tzedek, Rebbe Marash. In this Maimer, the Frierdiker Rebbe tells a story about his father and himself. And what's the story? The story is found in the Maimer briefly, and then there's another Sicha where the Frierdiker Rebbe tells the story and elaborates on it more. And the story is like this. He writes that he loved hearing stories of Torah, of tzaddikim, stories from Gemara, stories from tzaddikim like the Baal Shem Tov and the Rabbeim. And he developed this sensitivity that when he heard a story, he was able to picture it in his head. And it was so vivid, so clear, as if he was seeing it with his eyes. And very often, he would come home from cheder, from school, sit down on a chair, and go over some of the stories that he heard, close his eyes, and he would picture the story. So this was after the Rebbe Marash. His grandfather was the Rebbe Marash, the fourth Rebbe of Chabad. His grandfather, Rebbe Marash, had passed. The Frierdiker Rebbe must have been maybe 5, 6 years old at the time. And he said there was a chair in that room, in his private room, where I would love to sit on that chair, close my eyes, and think over those stories that I heard and picture them. That day I heard a story about Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, story in Gemara, that after his passing, he would come every Friday night, visit his family, sit down by the Shabbos table, make Kiddush, and this happened every single Friday night after he passed. So I came home, I sat down on that chair. This is the room of my grandfather. This is what he says. And his desk was there, his chair was there, the furniture wasn't touched, everything was exactly as it was during his lifetime. I'm sitting on my chair and I'm picturing in my mind what it must have looked like. That here's the family sitting by the Shabbos table. And Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, who passed away, is coming back. And he sits down at the head of the table where he usually sat. And he's leading the Shabbos table as always. And then he said to himself, my grandfather was a big tzaddik, so maybe he also comes back Friday night. And maybe not only Friday night. And as I'm thinking, I hear noise. I open my eyes. And obviously before he didn't, he was so deeply into his thoughts, he didn't hear any movement. I open my eyes and I see my father, who was the Rebbe Rashab, was standing in front of the desk of the grandfather, the Rebbe Marash, facing the desk and the chair as if the Rebbe would be sitting there. He has a note in his hand. He's wearing this gartel as he would usually wear when he went in to see the Rebbe. And tears were rolling from his eyes. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said, I got so frightened that I flew out of that room as quick as I can. Basically, and this is a story that he told in a mimer, implying that what I learned about, what I was thinking about the Rebbe coming back to his place, I actually saw this with my eyes. That there was my grandfather's chair, my grandfather's desk, and the Rebbe Rashab was standing opposite the chair and the desk, and he asked the questions that he would normally ask. So again, this is the source of what the Rebbe writes, and the story of the previous Rebbe, that Hasidim, even after we write to the Rebbe and we tell the Rebbe what is it that we need and the bracha that we need and so on. But then comes another question. Okay, I got you. I've been following you. Okay, you brought all the sources, fine. But what are you expecting an answer from there? So again, I want to read to you words from the Rebbe. This is after the passing of the Frierdiker Rebbe, where he writes that tells people they should take their note, bring it and give it to the Frierdiker Rebbe. And then he said, if you're really going to be connected and you won't allow certain thoughts to confuse you and disturb you, then the Rebbe will find a way to give you an answer. We're not limiting the Rebbe how to give his answer. He'll find a way that you'll get the answer that you're looking for. What you're doing is you're presenting, first of all, there are times you write about a bracha. So you should know the bracha is there. But then you're asking advice. How are you going to get advice? So the Rebbe says the Rebbe will find a way to give you the advice. And this is the basis of Hasidim, based on all this, to open Igros Kodesh and to look if it has something there that is, this is the letter, this is the book where I put my letter in, which means through this book, I'm giving my question to the Rebbe. So therefore, I'm opening up this book to see, where it opens up, to see if this is the Rebbe answering me. So now there's a few things that I want to emphasize, and that is, in spite of everything that I said, there still needs to be a lot of caution when you're talking about Igros Kodesh. And what's the caution? First of all, the first thing is something which the Rebbe himself said numerous times. Whenever the Rebbe spoke about this idea that you open a book of Torah and you look for an answer, he made it clear, emphasize, and re-emphasize It's only regarding a question that there's no clear directive in Torah. I remember once an incident where a woman called me up. I knew her many years, and she was divorced. A woman's divorced is not allowed to marry a Kohen. So years go by, she still wasn't married, and she happened to meet somebody by a Shabbos table, and this was perfect. This was like a dream come true. One little problem. It was a Kohen. What do we do? So I said, if that's the case, sometimes we do some research to find out, maybe he thinks he's a Kohen, he's not really a Kohen, so you can do the research. Did the research, 100% authentic Kohen. Okay, had to drop it. A few months later, it came up again. And then it came up a third time. And she told me that in the third time she called him and said, Rabbi, I opened up Igros Kodesh, and the Rebbe wrote Mazel Tov. So there it is. It's okay. So I explained to her, it can't, something which goes against Shulchan Aruch, it's not that the Igros Kodesh doesn't override Shulchan Aruch. The whole idea, opening up Igros Kodesh, or even opening up a Chumash and looking for an answer, is only for things that are not clearly written in the Torah or the Shulchan Aruch. Anything where there's a clear directive in Shulchan Aruch, in Torah, or even a chassid has a clear directive from the Rebbe to do something, he doesn't open a book to see if I should follow or not. This is a situation where you already have a clear directive what to do. If it's something which is a gray area, there's no clear directive, yes or no, and I could make my choice, that's when I open it up. So therefore, it's never to be used in a way to chas v'sholem override anything which is clearly in the Torah, clearly in the Shulchan Aruch, or even clearly something which the Rebbe told us that this is something we should do. So if someone says, I don't feel like doing Rambam, let me open up Igros, and says something about, you don't have to do it. Oh, there it is, the Rebbe told me not to do it. He already told you that this is what you should be doing. And the whole system of opening up a book does not even begin to apply to something like this. That's number one. Number two, let's not forget that when the Rebbe spoke to us and told us about, in a not direct way, what would happen if such a time would ever come that we can't ask the Rebbe directly our questions. The Rebbe then said that in general, if it's issues that pertain to medical issues, we should speak to a doctor and get a doctor, a friend. If it's issues pertaining to business, we should speak to an expert in the field, that's a friend. If it's issues that are related to spiritual direction, we should speak to mashpia. Everyone should have a mashpia. But after all that, if I still am left with a question, I don't know what to do, normally you would write to the Rebbe. What should we do? And the Rebbe's answer was that everybody should turn to the Rav or the Bezdin, the Hasidic Bezdin in their community. And by saying that, he made it clear that it's not that there's going to be a Bezdin of all Chabad around the world. Every community has their local Bezdin, and that's what we should turn to. So in general, there's two things that Rebbe told us very clearly and explicitly. Number one, if I have a doubt, I should ask my mashpia. Or if there's something which is more serious and mashpia feels this is too much of a responsibility, you can go to a Rav. A Rav is someone, because he paskins halacha, he has a special assistance from above, from heaven, to be able to give the right answer, and you can ask him. There's also times where you can write into Igros Kodesh. But I remember hearing once from someone speaking about Igros Kodesh, and they said something along the lines like, now you no longer have to speak to Mashpia, you no longer have to speak to anyone else, just open the book and make your own decision. That is not true, 100% not true. All those things that Rebbe told us stand very strong. And even the opening of the book, I very often need the help of Mashpia to understand it, because one of the things that you need caution when you open Igros Kodesh is, am I interpreting it correctly? Sometimes you hear people say, I open it up, I don't see any answer, but I noticed the number on the page was 732. And that's actually the number of my address in my house. So it must be related to me. And I also noticed another thing on the page. So that together with this means yes. I call it somersaults. You're doing somersaults to find something in the answer that you can be very, very off target completely. And basically, it's almost like using the Igros Kodesh to do what I really want to do. And I don't have to ask any authority. I don't have to mashpia. Just do what I want to do. And this is going to be my license. So if you're going to go by Igros Kodesh, it's very important that you know that what you're interpreting is really true. And that's very often we use the help of mashpia or someone else that you respect, that you look at an objective person. Not that I'm reading in the answer that I want into the words of Igros Kodesh, but I'm doing this based on someone else who's objective, and they read into it and they see that this is really what it's saying to me. So this is the general idea of the source for Igros Kodesh, the proper way to use Igros Kodesh, and practically, I think first thing a person should do when they have a question is really try to ask a mashpia. If there's reasons why, for whatever, either mashpia himself sometimes says open Igros Kodesh, but those who question whether this is authentic, it's 100% authentic, and there are hundreds of stories of people that wrote Igros Kodesh. And even here in the school, many stories of students that I spoke to, and I was like in shock to see the accuracy, how precise their answer was. By the way, not always does that happen. So sometimes you open it up and you don't see any connection to the question you asked. So again, some people will say it can be. If I open it up, there's got to be an answer, and they'll turn and twist and twist and turn until they make an answer out of it. No, it could also be that you didn't get an answer. When we wrote to the Rebbe physically, and the Rebbe answered us physically in writing, not always did you get an answer every time. In fact, there were times where I didn't get an answer, and the Rebbe's secretary would say, write in a second time. And the second time, I got the answer. There was a time I once wrote in, and I didn't get an answer until I wrote in a second time, and the second time I got an answer on the first time and the second time. It was the same answer, but both letters came out. So not always did you write and get an answer. What does it mean? Does it mean that no? Does it mean the Rebbe is not interested in answering me? So by the way, this in itself, you find in the Rebbe's letters that people sometimes wrote to the Rebbe that they feel the Rebbe is not relating to them the way he relates to others. They're not getting answers. So first of all, the Rebbe writes, if I don't get an answer, it's not God forbid because of that. It's because I was very, very tied up and I couldn't get to answer the letter. And there are times where not answering is an answer. It means I want you to figure this out yourself. This is something you have to do on your own. And sometimes it means the answer is no. So it's not clear. But one thing is for sure that if you don't see an answer, you don't make something up and try to fit it in. It means that you didn't get an answer this particular time. And either you write in a second time or you help someone look at it and see if you could have a better understanding of what it says. Yeah.
When you write the letter, do you say the first sentence, you also say like when you write the letter, when you go to the Iyar?
Yeah, you write the same way. You address it to the Rebbe, Great Kedushas Admor, whichever you write, Avon Shlita, whatever, however you write it. You put in the letter. Yes, being that I'm writing to the Rebbe, before people would write to the Rebbe, they would say the Rebbe's capital Tillim, or they would learn something from the Rebbe. It wasn't just like, okay, let me just sit down and write to the Rebbe. You know, this is something serious. When people went into the Rebbe, they would put on a gartel, the men, and they would make preparations. So sometimes people do it very casually, and they're really not realizing that this is not something so simple. You're really writing to the Rebbe. It's not chas v'sholom like some say, I wrote to the Igros and the Igros answered me. The Igros don't answer you. We're going by the understanding that I'm writing to the Rebbe and the Rebbe is answering me through these Igros. So therefore, it has to be done in a serious way. You sit down, you think before what you're doing, you picture the Rebbe's face, like it says here, you say the Rebbe's kapitel, you give tzedakah, and you ask Hashem to help you that you should be able to merit to get a clear, open answer. Now all the questions. Yes, Rotan. Looks like you have a question.
Yeah. But also you can write the Rebbe weekly without this, right?
Could you write weekly without a question? Yes, the Rebbe,
Yeah.
even though the Rebbe got hundreds of letters a day, we see the Rebbe keeps writing people, why don't you write me? And when they write, why are you writing so brief? Why don't you elaborate on more details? We would think, oh, I'm protecting the Rebbe because he has so much, I don't want to give him more things. But we see the Rebbe himself demanded a lot of letters start with these words. I haven't heard from you a long time. And why haven't you written? And why didn't you tell me what's going on? So the Rebbe actually wants us to write him, and write him meaning to inform what's going on in my life, what happened over the week. And then there are times we write because we're looking for an answer. But there's no doubt when you write, especially if you need a bracha, even if you don't get the answer, you got the bracha. And that you find in the Rebbe's letters where a person writes, I just read in a letter like that the other day. I didn't get an answer. The Rebbe said, what you asked me was for a bracha, and you got the bracha. I didn't have the time to write back to you, but I took your letter to the Ohel, and I asked my father-in-law to pray for you. So you got the bracha. So if you write for bracha, you have it right away. The answer, that's something which you have to do more effort to be able to see clearly where you got the answer. Yeah.
Majeski, while we're writing the letter to the Rebbe, we're asking for the bracha. Are we asking for the bracha from the Rebbe or from Hashem? Like,
So that's a general question. It's not about the letters. In general, when a person will go to the Rebbe and ask the Rebbe for a bracha. So if you remember, in the beginning of the year, we had a class called the Hasidic Way of Life. Not in the beginning of the year, actually, a few months ago, we started it. And we brought all the sources. And that is that Hashem said to Avraham, I am giving you the power to give brachas. And then it says in Chumash that Avraham gave this over to Yitzchak, the power to give brachas. And then we find in Parshas Vayechi that Yaakov gave brachas to all his children. And then we find the Parsha, the whole name of the Parsha is called bracha, Zois HaBracha. When Moshe gave a bracha to all the tribes. So clearly, tzaddikim have the power to give a bracha, but where does a tzaddik have the power to give a bracha? Because Hashem gives them the power to give a bracha. So when a tzaddik gives a bracha, it means he's drawing down Hashem's bracha to that person.
so when I'm writing, like, is it okay if I'm writing out, like, asking the Rebbe for bracha, or I should ask, like through the Rebbe's hands and asking Hashem for bracha?
No, you're writing to them, asking the Rebbe for bracha. And by the way, a bracha, we can ask anyone. You can ask your friend for a bracha. There's nothing wrong with it. What does it mean? Of course, an ordinary person doesn't have the power that their bracha would make as much of such a power to make that difference. The Rebbe's bracha is stronger. It can overpower certain things that might be getting in the way. But the idea of asking someone for a bracha, people ask other people, sit by a table, give me a bracha, give me a bracha, and people give brachas. It's understood, it's so clear, we don't have to explain it, that the power to give a bracha can only come from one source, that's Hashem. And when I give a bracha, I'm drawing down Hashem's bracha to this person, and the same is with the Rebbe.
When you read the letter that you open, how do you make sure that you're not doing the somersaults like you said? Like, if you open a letter and you read it and it's not like exactly to the T your situation, but it is kind of, and then you think about how you can apply it to yourself.
When I
you
say
make sure to
not exactly to the T, it doesn't mean it has to be exact. I'll give you an example that the Rebbe gives. When the Rebbe speaks about opening a sefer, he gives this example. A person has a question whether or not he should open a business. And he opens the Chumash, and he opens to a pasuk which says, "Pasayach tiftach es yadecha." Open your hand. What that pasuk is talking about is open your hand to give tzedakah. Don't close it. But being that it says open, you should open. And my question was, should I open a business? So that's an answer. So we look for things that are similar to what I'm writing. Let's say a person is moving to a new house, and they're asking the Rebbe, should I move to a new apartment? And the Rebbe writes this person, Mazel Tov, I heard that you moved to another city. It should be a lot of, oh, that's another city, and this is in the same city. That part is very, we can't expect that in the Igros I'll find my name and my address and my telephone number. You're not going to find that. But you're looking for an answer that somewhat relates to me. If a person says, I feel down, and the Rebbe writes, if you feel down, this is what you should do. Oh, that's a pretty direct answer. If a person writes that I'm having a trouble with my friend, and the Rebbe says, this is what you do with a friend. I think I told you the story once. I was once in Borough Park, and this chassid, regular Polish chassid with long pace that sees me, and he says, are you Babich? I said, yeah. So I'll tell you a story. And he tells me this story that he went to the oil, and there was a woman there that walked over to him and said that she asked the Rebbe for a bracha. She opened the Igros Kodesh, but she can't read the Hebrew. Maybe you could read it for me. He wasn't into reading Igros. He just came to daven by a gravesite of a tzaddik, but he wasn't into these things. But anyway, he opened the letter, and the Rebbe says, the reason why you're having so much problems with your neighbor, you have to have more kavanah, more intention. When you say the blessing in the morning, Hashem, protect me from bad neighbors. And he said, that's exactly what I wrote about. I'm having a lot of trouble with my neighbors. So he's telling me the story. Basically, in that case, I don't doubt that it's a direct answer. That's mamish direct. But even if it's something similar to what I'm writing about, then it's okay. If I have a doubt, then definitely to ask someone. And sometimes there's no doubt, it's clear, there's no connection to what I wrote about. And then not to go on to these somersaults. And if you don't get an answer, not to get devastated, or must be something very wrong with me, I'm not getting an answer. A lot of people don't get answers. I have more that I don't get answers than I do get answers. And I guess there are other reasons why this is happening. And maybe it means that for certain people that Rebbe wants them to work things out. The Rebbe gives the bracha, he helps you, but not in such an open way. Or the answer comes in another way. People have stories where they wrote to the Rebbe about something of a certain problem, whether it's a shidduch or a business. And then a few days later, someone offers them a shidduch, and that's what happens. Or a few days later, someone walks over to them and tells them one reason or another why they want to give them a big donation, which means this was the answer. It came through that way. So naturally, all this is based on emunah, that we believe that there's higher, not forces than nature. If a person is very immersed in science and in nature, and believe only in things happen in a natural way, they don't believe in Hashgacha Pratis. They don't believe in something like a person could be listening to me, answering me, all these things, of course won't register. So we're approaching this from a Torah perspective, that in general, Hashem runs this world in a way which is above nature. Tzaddikim are above nature. All the things the Rebbe did and all the people that were helped, it's all supernatural things. And therefore, it's not limited to the laws of nature. This is also not limited to the laws of nature. If you have any questions, you're welcome to ask it at another time also. But I think now must be classes. What's happening now? Mrs. Cohen?
Yeah, so Mrs. Gonsberg is going to be here at 2, and Mrs. Goldson is not going to be here, so I'm going to take the class.
Okay. Very welcome.
Thank you. You said that it should be when there's no Torah answer. Like, did the Rebbe say that, like, if you exhausted your other options, then, like, if you talk too much via, and you talk to the